Okay, thank you so much, Andy, and thanks so much to LION+MASON for letting us be a part of today. Really excited to share our user-centred design process and how we make it work with our team at Leeds Building Society. So hello, I'm Shasha and I'm a senior UX designer at Leeds, and I've been there just over 2 years.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm also a senior user experience designer and I've been with Leeds just under 2 years.
And I'm Amy. I'm senior user researcher and I've been here 1.5 years.
Yeah, so today we're going to be walking through sort of our user-centred design process. And we use this to make sure that we're creating the best possible journeys for our members, because members are ultimately at the heart of everything we do as a building society. And we're also really hoping that you can take away some actual practical tips that you can use with your teams and sort of with your own journeys and processes. And yeah, ultimately creating the best all-round product. So this is just a snapshot of our user-centered design process that we use at Leeds. So this was created in Figma and it was used to sort of be an aid for our designers to add onto all of their project files so they can kind of go through it. So we've added handy checkboxes and links throughout to really sort of allow the designers to step through the process and make sure that they're kind of hitting all the steps. So it follows the kind of universally known process of discover, define, design, validate, and develop. But what we've done is we really wanted to break that down into tangible actions. So it was a lot easier to kind of go through and mark off as you go, because as you can probably see, it can be quite overwhelming. And as a designer, we do have a lot of different parts to our role, but collaboration is key, as you'll find out further in this session. So today I'm going to be talking about peer collaboration. And I really want to sort of highlight who our key players are, why we take this approach, and how we make it work for us at Leeds Building Society. So who are our key players? We have UX UI designers, accessibility consultants, UX researchers, and service designers in our tight-knit sort of digital experience team. And you can see there's a lot of crossover here. We have a lot of hybrid roles as well. And what we do is we work very closely together, collaborate, and ensure that we are sort of developing each other's specialisms and sharing our knowledge continually. But that's not all we work with. We also work with a much wider sort of group of colleagues. So anywhere from analytics to developers, content, brand and marketing, customer experience. Like, we work very closely with everyone to try and bring in all of the insights and ultimately produce that best end of product. So why do we take this approach? Cross-team collaboration brings new ideas, sharing of insights. We actually do semi-regular knowledge shares within our team as well. So we either take in turn or we have a single presenter, and they will share some information that they've either learned, or they might have gone to an event recently that they want to sort of share what their findings were, or just a skill. And I've really found these have been very well received from the team, and it's kind of, you see actions that they've taken in further projects that they've worked on. And yeah, it's really great to see that improvement. And you also get that buy-in from sort of wider stakeholders. So we do things like ideation workshops or hackathons. And we don't just include the designers, we want to include other areas of the business and other key stakeholders to really get them involved in what we do and allow them to kind of be a part of that ideation step and ultimately designing that new journey for our customers. Upskilling between specialists, like I was mentioning, we do a lot collaboratively and really kind of learn and develop from each other. So I know I've learned so much about research and accessibility from David, and even, you know, Joe as well, like working together as both UX designers, we've sort of shared skills and developed each other as UX designers. And ultimately, this just means we can create the best high quality and consistent designs across our website. So how do we make it work? We continually review that process. So this could be regular retrospectives, which is what we host to see how the designers are getting on, and they'll tell us what they think is working well, what might not be working well. And ultimately, we're looking to find those barriers and those pain points that they're finding in that process. We also implemented design process check-ins this year. So they're more one-to-one sessions with the designers where they'll walk us through a project that they're doing, and they'll kind of go through all the steps of that process and say what they kind of worked on, maybe where they found it difficult. And yeah, we can work together as a team to sort of identify and overcome those challenges. Flexibility is also really key. So we want to make sure that, you know, it's quite a large process and it can look a little scary to some, but you might have a project that's quite small and you might not need to go through all of those steps. And we understand that, we do realise that it doesn't always have to go exactly the sort of perfect process. And also you might be doing steps in a slightly different order sometimes, so that's really key. And iteration. Again, iteration is really key. It's always a continuous process, like our UCD process. It's never ending. You kind of do go back round to that step. So once your project is live, you'll kind of review it, see how the data's doing, any more pain points, and kind of push it back all round into that user-centered design process. But recently we've actually got made an iteration to the process because some of our designers were finding it quite tricky to go through all of those checkboxes. So we've created 2 different versions, one where it's got the checkboxes and one without. And that just means they can use whichever one they feel more comfortable with. We've also created another version in Miro. So we've been using Miro a lot more as a team to sort of collaborate and define steps. So that's meant we can kind of use it in there to hit those define and discover steps. Okay, I'm now going to pass to Joe.
Hi everybody, so today I'd like to talk to you about our smart personas, and in particular I want to take you through 3 key things: how we created our personas, so we're looking at our approach to them, how we designed them, who we worked with, and also what the actual designs look like now. And then I'll be looking at how we adapt to change, so we'll be looking at 1 or 2 of the challenges which we've actually encountered during the process of creating these and actually using them as well. And then it's really exciting at the moment in the team. We've got loads of great stuff going forward, and I'd like to just maybe share with you 1 or 2 things that we're doing in the future. So in terms of where this all started, so about 2 years ago now, we kind of set about going on this adventure almost of creating some accurate smart personas that can be used to drive improvements to our member experience. And when I say smart personas, what I mean is that all the detail and all the actual content that makes up those personas is both actionable and it's highly relevant to what is needed in your process and in your projects. So in terms of the approach, we really need to approach this with a collaborative mindset. There's so many people, so many teams and SMEs peppered throughout our business that have so much great information on our members, and we needed to really find a way to actually tap into this. And so we held loads of workshops, loads of sessions with teams such as our customer experience team, service design team who work with very closely on a day-to-day basis anyway, the contact centre team, of course, who speak to our members on a daily basis, and also a marketing team who actually use segments, and we've got some great information from those guys too. So when these sessions concluded, we had some fantastic data. We had both qualitative and quantitative data, which meant we were really able to actually look at these and shape them into some personas which are really accurate and exactly what we needed at the time. So in terms of the actual design, here is 3, and I'm hopefully it'll load. Yep, fantastic. So I just want to run you through the actual makeup of a persona. So Guy here, as you can see in the middle here. So we really want to ensure that vulnerability and accessibility were woven into the fabric of all our personas. And so just to give you an idea here, Guy, under other information, the top right, has dyslexia. And to a certain degree, his needs and his frustrations actually mirror that too. And underneath those there, we have a little paragraph for our designers which kind of bring everything together. And it tells them how to design for Guy, what his journey should look like. Another thing to actually mention here is that we were really keen to actually create accessible files as well. So these were created in Figma. And we went through and we ensured that they were accessible. So the colour contrast, for instance, in all of these is accessible. The type is accessible. And also, for some of you who may not know, people who suffer with dyslexia, or some people who suffer with dyslexia, actually don't like centrally aligned content. So we made sure that all the bulk content is left aligned, so it's easier to read. So in terms of keeping our personas relevant, so everybody knows that the world is changing so fast, and change is inevitable wherever you actually go, and it's no more prevalent in our industry. And so you have to adopt a real continuous improvement approach here. So iterative approach is the one that we always go for. So let's take things into account, such as the consumer duty. So the consumer duty recently came into force in July. And so basically, the consumer duty seeks to ensure that customers receive good outcomes in terms of 4 areas. And those areas are 1, product and services, price and value, customer understanding, and customer support. So we reflected on the personas that we had to see if our personas actually covered all these areas. And on evaluation, actually, they were a bit lacking, and especially on the 3rd point in customer understanding. So we really, really needed to move quickly on this and act straight away to ensure that our personas covered this. And so to give you an example of what we did, so after evaluating our personas, we thought that Paul would be a good persona because he nearly almost mirrored some of the things that we wanted to put into this persona. So under needs, we have English isn't his first language, and we tweaked this to ensure that this was here for our designers to see. And he needs to feel confident that he understands important detail before he proceeds in a process. Under frustrations, almost mirrors the actual need here. So if he's confronted with tech jargon or language that is too complex and he doesn't actually understand, he really is put off by this and probably won't proceed in the process. So what we can do with this as a designer here now, and this is what our designers will do, they'll go away and look at these points, and then they'll collaborate with our content team to ensure that all these points are met and to ensure that language is correct. And so the persona Paul can actually go through his journey to confidence and complete his goal. So in terms of going forward, so I mentioned that it's a really, really exciting time for us at Leeds. As a UX team in particular, we are integrated into more squads and teams than ever before. 5 on last count, maybe 6, not too sure. But yeah, this comprises of both our savings products and our mortgages products as well. And one of the things that we've found where we've been actually split into these squads, a great thing is that we really, really have some fantastic say, and we're taken serious as a team and our UX ability, so we're really listened to, which is so important to us. So we found, though, that there's a need for more targeted personas within these squads, within these product sets, within these wider journeys. And so, for instance, in our savings maturities journeys now, we have real targeted personas which are just there for the maturities journey. And likewise, we're looking to do the same with mortgages as well. So we're going to come up with some personas for mortgages too. Another thing we're doing, which is really exciting for us, is we're actually going to build colleague personas too. So we really, really want to ensure that our relationships are so strong with our stakeholders that they always come to us and they need us and they trust us too. So, for instance, let's take a product owner. We really want to understand, as we work with product owners so closely, what their needs and frustrations are. It's really important that we know what keeps them up at night almost, how they like to work, what tools they use as well. That's really important to us because eventually we're all working on the same team. We just want to achieve a fantastic outcome for our members. And so this is what we're trying to do. I guess in terms of success, I would say that there is threefold at the moment in terms of our personas. The first is collaboration, as Shasha mentioned earlier. Probably collaboration and transparency, I would say, is probably up there too. Transparency because we need to ensure that everyone in the actual business knows what we're doing and who we are and why we're actually doing what we're doing with our personas. The second is iteration, of course. With so much things going on in the world at the moment, it's so important that our personas are reflective of our members and we keep things up to date constantly. And just actually digging down into more granular detail of what we think is really successful at the moment is the actual makeup of these personas. So they're smart. So it's so important that all the detail is actionable, it's relevant, and it's understandable as well as memorable. And so now I'd like to hand you over to Amy, who's going to talk a little bit about our research function.
Okay. So just a little bit of background about user research at Leeds Building Society. So when I joined 18 months ago, I was the first dedicated user researcher at the Building Society. And I remember at my interview, one of my questions was, how open are your UX designers to actually hearing user feedback on their work? Because I've experienced in some companies, it's a little bit of a sensitive subject if user research is a new thing there. And I was happy to hear that at Leeds Building Society, we have a great culture of doing right by our members. And this, of course, extends to digital. So the UX designers were already conducting their own research, had been for a while, and they were really invested in understanding users' needs and how they can make things work better for them. So I joined at a really exciting time to be able to come in and mature the user research function, introduce new methodologies, and continue to upskill the team. So it's good to hear that there's so many user researchers here, so no pressure for me. So I'm sure you're all very aware, or not all of you, but a lot of you are aware of many of the benefits of user research. So this isn't an exhaustive list at all, but just as a bit of a recap. So there's benefits for us as an organisation. User research allows us to make the right decisions the first time, well, maybe not the first time, but earlier than it might be without user research. And this means saving time and money on more development. It brings us closer to our members, so it gives us more empathy and understanding, which then translates to our work. And this in turn helps us get things right earlier, because as people are designing things, they've got their user needs in the back of their mind, or at the front of their mind, hopefully, so they can design things with them in mind to start off with. It can also encourage innovation and help us stand out against peers. And probably more importantly, the benefits for our members, our users. It makes things easier and more enjoyable to use. It increases trust when things look and work the way they should, which is especially important in financial services. And our members feel more valued when their voices are heard. And I really enjoy speaking with our members and getting to know them, what makes them tick, and what their interactions with Leeds Building Society have been like. I like hearing about how much they love their branches. And I've even spoken to some who have been really engaged in AGM events, because they love giving their views about how things are going. And including them in research is another opportunity for them to have a say in how things are going. So I've got a kind of before and after example now, which is a change that we've recently made, which has already kind of been giving us some of these benefits. So the before there and the after are both showing the same stage of the same journey. And this is from our maturity instructions form online. So this is the stage where users come on to tell us what they want to do with their money when their existing Leeds account, the fixed rate ends, so it matures. So at this point, they're selecting a new Leeds account to move that money into. So you can see the not very exciting drop-down list on the left there. And in testing, we found that users weren't very confident selecting a product from this list. Probably can't read it from where you are, but it just lists the names of the account. So for example, 1 year fixed rate cash ISA, issue 191. So a lot of the names are very similar. And whilst users they'd made a decision before they got to the form about which account they wanted to open. When they came to here, they still weren't really confident in selecting one because it didn't have all the information that they were expecting to see, including the interest rate. So some users would go to the website and double check it there, or they'd go back to the letter that they received and check it there. And it was just really breaking up the journey and causing some dropout. So with this feedback, as well as lots of other feedback, which I'm sure you can imagine, we developed this one on the right. And like I say, this is the exact same step in the process, but in this one, we've got a lot more context about the accounts. So they're down here. So we've included the things that users told us were most important to them, including the interest rate. And when we tested this, we got much more positive feedback. So we felt a lot more confident taking this forwards into development. So this is now live for a portion of our users. And even though not all of our users can access it yet, because it depends what account they have, we've already seen a 10% increase in members completing their instructions online compared with last year. So if you zoomed in on the UCD process diagram that Shasha shared earlier, you would see that user research comes up quite often in that. It's not just check it once and it'll be fine. So it's really important that you're choosing the right methods at the right time. And again, this isn't exhaustive. It isn't an instruction of what to do when necessarily. It all depends on what you're testing, what you know already, and what your objectives are. But just as an example of some things that we would choose to do at certain points in the process. So in the discovery phase, you might look at doing interviews and visits with your target users. So for example, we've carried out ethnographic research with brokers. So when we're looking to improve our intermediaries site, I visited brokers at their offices, immersed myself in their environment and looked at how they worked and how their interactions with Leeds Building Society fit into that. And Joe earlier mentioned the colleague personas. So we're doing a similar process now, and we're visiting colleagues at the call centre and branches, as well as in head office. In the define stage, you might look at testing the current process, for instance, similar to how we did with the maturities form on the previous slide. Design and review, this is where we might carry out quite a number of smaller or moderated tests, like click tests, preference tests, or basic usability tests. looking at individual pieces of a design and making sure that things are kind of working properly and they're meeting user needs and expectations. When it comes to validating, it is good to conduct some in-depth usability testing, so one-to-one with your users, watching them go through a process as naturally as possible, gathering their feedback. And whilst you're doing all this, we're iterating, so taking the feedback, improving it, doing it again. And we're also collaborating, so it's important that you involve as many people from the project team, as many stakeholders in that particular thing, in the research process. So we like to invite people from lots of different teams. So legal, content, we'd have the BAs, developers, invited to observe the moderated research, for example, the usability testing. So this would be done remotely, so the users doesn't have a room full of people staring at them on the computer. So they'd be observing that, and at the same time, we're also collaborating on our observations using Miro, which has been a really good experience. And we've even included our directors in testing, so they've experienced what it's like to be a participant in research. So I've sat down with them and given them a task to do on the website, and they've got to kind of put themselves in our members' shoes and go through, feel the same pain points, and have that experience of one of our users. And they've been really engaged in this. They've said how it's really interesting to be a part of, and it's also like a really fun hour of their very busy schedules. So we're going to continue to keep members at the heart of our services with continuous iteration based on feedback, much like that. We're going to demonstrate the value of research. So this is just one of the things we've been doing, like I say, with stakeholders. And I think you can probably see how an experience like that can really kind of want people to invest in research and in developing our digital services. We're also looking forward to introducing empathy labs with David down there, so that colleagues can experience our digital services through the lens of different members with different accessibility needs. And we'll be expanding our research capabilities as well. So this includes continuing to upskill the digital experience team and allowing some democratization in research work. And we'll be onboarding new methods as well. So we'll be introducing live intercepts so we can get real-time feedback from users on our site about how they're getting on experiencing it. I'm always kind of keeping my eye out for anything in AI that could help us with research. So we're using Miro. We were experimenting with Miro a little bit, using their kind of sorting things by topic and sentiment. So I'm really excited to hear Mike's talk on what that could look like in the future. And we'll also be introducing and including eye tracking in some of our research as well, which is going to add another level of insight, particularly to the mobile experience, and also seeing users interacting with our postal communications as well, which is still quite a big part of what they want from us at the moment. So I've just got an example of how this could look. Okay. So this video is taken using some eye tracking glasses. So it's me wearing them. And if you're not familiar with eye tracking yet, then the red dot shows where my eyes are focusing on the screen. And this is me going into the menu. And you can see the accuracy of it when I'm reading the menu items there, and then coming down to look at the steps involved in changing my mortgage deal. And what I like about eye tracking glasses is you don't just get to see where people are looking at on the screen, but you get to see all the interactions, the hand movements, shaking their head when you can start to see people getting a bit frustrated or confused. And this is probably what you were experiencing in the task as well. We've suddenly moved on to an old area of the site, and I've had to zoom in so you can see the hands zooming in and horizontally scrolling to be able to read this text, which I'm thinking is probably pretty important because it's about mortgages. Yeah, so that's what I'm looking forward to doing soon. So it's an exciting time to be working in digital experience at Leeds Building Society as the whole team continues to mature and learn more and more about our members and our needs. So I'm going to hand over to Shasha now to close up.
Okay.
Yeah, great. No, thank you everyone. And I really hope you found that useful and you've got some practical sort of tips that you can take away and actually use with your teams. But if we were to leave you with 3 main key takeaways, that would be to collaborate, evaluate, and iterate. Thank you.